Welcome to this tutorial on creating a triptych. What we're going to do is use three different pictures to create our triptych. Triptych meaning three, try. And putting three pictures together in some sort of common theme or story to create a nice piece of artwork. So the first thing we need to do is create a new document to copy three pictures into. So I'm going to go File, New, and it's a three triptych. You can also make triptychs out of just one picture and splice it up into three different parts. We're going to use three different photographs. Now I'm actually going to be ending up copying this into InDesign later on. So I'm going to work in picas. It's already set to picas. You have a whole bunch of different measurements here you can choose from. InDesign works with picas, so I'm going to do that. And my document width is 60. And the height is 45 in the document, but I'm going to go down to 20 because it's not going to fill up the whole page. I'd like a pretty high resolution, so I'm going to use 300. It's the standard for printing or higher. And I'm going to use CMYK color mode, and I'm going to start with a transparent background so there's nothing there. So I click OK, and it gives me my new document, shrinks it down a little bit from actual size. It's about 1/3 of the actual size. And then I just need to go through and copy and paste my pictures in. So I'm going to start with this picture, and this picture is actually a lot bigger than my other document. If you don't see your rulers up here, which I want to use at some point, you can go up to View and just check Rulers. It's there. And I'm going to right click on the ruler, and I can again choose any measurement that I want. So I'm going to use picas, and you'll see that my document is just over 265 picas wide, whereas my other one was 60. So I have to shrink this down a fair bit. So what I'm going to do is go to Image and Image Size. And again, my measurement is picas. I've gone there before, so it automatically will come up, but usually the default, I believe, is pixels or inches. Inches here. Pixels are shown up there all the time. So I'm going to shrink this down. Now I have to do a little bit of math. My document size is 60. I'm putting three pictures in, but I don't want them to touch. So divide 60 by 3 and I get 20. So I have to do at least 20 in my width. The most 20, but I want to do less than that. So I'm actually going to go down to 17, and you'll notice that my height automatically changes as well. That's because I have constrained proportions, which basically means keep the same proportion as I shrink it or grow it. So I'm going to resample it as well, and I need to also match my resolution. So I'm going to change the resolution to 300. I'm shrinking down the document, so that shouldn't affect my quality too much. If I don't match the resolution, the picture will be a lot smaller when I copy and paste it in. So I now have a width of 17 and 12.75 picas. Match the resolution. I click OK, and it will shrink it down. Then what I'm going to do is select all, which I need to do before I can copy something. I have to draw a selection. I'm going to go to Edit, Paste, Copy, and I can do Control C if I want to. Then I'm going to go to my document here, and I'm going to go Edit, Paste, or Control V, and it will paste it in. So I have room on the top, room on the bottom, and I've got enough space probably here to put in my document. Now, I want to be able to line things up really nicely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag a guideline down from the top, and you can see it just snaps to the top of the picture there. That's because I have snap checked and snap to guides. Well, basically it's going to snap to everything that's opened. So guides and layers and document bounds. Grid if I put that on, and slices if I ever use those, which I won't in this case. I'm going to put one down at the bottom as well. I don't really have to, but it just makes it a little bit easier. Then I'm actually going to drag in some guidelines from the side. So I know that I have 17 picas used up. I'm going to use up another 17 for the other two pictures. That leaves me 9 picas approximately. So what I'm going to do, and I can change it later, is I'm just going to drag a guideline in, and I'm going to go from 0, drag it into 3 picas. Now I'm going to do the same on the other end, but I'm going to have to go from 60 and minus 3 down to 57. And you can see that little window pops up with the X coordinate for the guideline, and it tells me I'm exactly 57 picas. So I have the same distance from the edge here as I do here, which will allow me to line up my other pictures. So now I just simply have to go here, go to image, image size, change this to 17, resolution to 300, make sure constraint proportions, all 3 of these should be checked in order to resize it with the best quality. I click OK, select all, edit copy, and edit paste. Now it automatically pastes it in the exact middle, which is why I didn't have to do any measuring on the top and the bottom. So when I paste it there, it'll go into the exact middle again. It'll put it on a new layer, so I can actually rename these layers. And what I'm going to do is put this picture all the way over here on the right. You can see I can place it wherever I want, but if I use my guidelines, it'll snap and line it up perfectly with all those guidelines there. So I now have 2 of my pictures in. I go to my third one, image size, change it again, make sure they're all identical, click OK, Control A to select it all, Control C to copy, Control V to paste, take the move tool, use my guidelines, and drag it over. So I now have my triptych. There's a bit of a theme there. I've got the tree going up, a view from the tree from the bottom of it, and then a view of one of the leaves there. Just a simple thematic triptych. I'm going to rename my layers. I just double click on the word layer 1, and I'm going to rename that center and right and left, just to remind myself of what's what. It's really handy to do that, especially if you're working with 20, 30, 40 layers in a picture, which can happen. Now, I also want to put a background color in, but I don't want to do it on any one of these layers because it will end up covering something up, especially if I do it up on the left one here. I can reorganize them, so it's not a huge deal, but it's just a good idea to always put something on its own layer. So I'm going to create a new layer and type in BG for background. And I'm going to choose a color from my document. So I want to match it up to have a nice looking background there that really goes with my picture. So I have this tool over here called the eyedropper tool. It's 6 down. It's grouped with a bunch of tools. And so if you don't see the eyedropper right away, say you see the ruler, just count 6 down, find the eyedropper tool. It's right below this tool called the crop tool. And then what I can do is I can go and I can click and sample colors from my document. So that outer circle of gray just pops up, and then as I go through you can see the color on the top ring changes. So I can choose a green if I want to. I can go for a dark brown or a light brown, even a white. There's some blues. I've got a variety of colors I can choose from. So I probably want to pick something that goes well. It's maybe fairly, it doesn't really stand out. I don't want something too bright to take away from my pictures, but something that I think that will look good. So I'm going to choose a green here. And then what I do is I go another 6 tools down. Right below the eraser is a group of tools called the gradient. That's usually the first one that pops up. It also has a paint bucket tool there as well. And then all I have to do is make sure I'm on my BG layer. Whatever layer I click on is the one I'm working on. So I go on the BG layer and I click. Now you'll notice that one of them gets covered up. The order of the layers actually matter. So if this is the top layer, it's going to cover everything up If I drag it down to the bottom layer, it becomes the bottom. So that's a pretty nice color. It goes well. It's picked out of this green here. It doesn't take away too much from the picture, but it does accent that those photographs. The last thing I'm going to do, just to create some separation, is build a border frame around this. There's a few ways you can do it, but I find maybe the simplest way is to use layer styles. So up here, I can go to layer and layer styles and access a variety of different layer styles. It's also where I can do copy and paste, which we'll get to a little bit later. So I can click on any one of these and it will open up a window that allows me to choose different layer styles. I can also double click on the empty space on this layer to open that up, and I'll get the same window. It also will allow me to choose the left layer. So I'm going to work on this picture over here. So the two things I'll use are stroke, so I can check it to apply it, but I click on it to see the options. So I'm going to increase the size. So right now I've got a black border that I can put in. You'll notice that there's different positions. Outside gives me a rounded edge here. I can go to inside, which gives me a square edge, but it does cover up a little bit of the picture. And I have center, which does round it slightly, and it covers up part of the picture, but also part of the background. So I'm going to go with a square shape there. I'm also going to change the color, and again I can choose from in here a color. So I'm going to go with something fairly dark but not black. Let's go with that, and that will become my border color. I'm also going to do a bevel emboss, which is sort of a 3D look to it. And so I click on that to check it, and then I can click on it to adjust it. So I've got the size, which I can change. I can soften it. I can change the angle of it. There's a lot of different options here. So if I change the angle, it will just change essentially the light source kind of idea, where you have something shining, so it gets lighter to darker, it creates a shadow. Same sort of idea, just changes the angle of the bevel. So you can play around with that. I can choose different colors for the shadows and the highlights of the bevel. I also have the ability to change it to chisel hard, chisel soft. So it just changes the effect from a rounded soft edge to a hard edge. I can do an inner bevel, outer bevel, emboss, pillow emboss. There's 5 different options here. So that would be my pillow emboss. I don't want to use that one. I think I'll just use the inner one, just to keep it simple so I don't affect any of the green here. I can choose up or down, so kind of a dropped in or a standing up look to it. And of course the size I can change, and I can soften it and harden it as well. So once I'm happy with it, and I'll just zoom in here on this so we can take a look at what it looks like. Go to zoom in. So it just has that 3D feel to it, much like a 3-dimensional picture frame, but it does the same thing on all corners. So it's just a neat little effect that you can put on there. Now once you have it done, instead of having to remember all those settings that you did, all you have to do is copy and paste it. So I can copy and paste it just by going to layer, layer style, and copy layer style. I wouldn't go to edit copy because that just copies the whole thing, and I don't want to copy the layer. Then I just go to my other ones and I go layer, layer style, paste, and it pastes the exact same one on there. So I'm going to do it to the last one here. And there I have my 3 picture triptych with a nice frame around each one to kind of make them stand out, and a background color that blends well in with my picture. There you have it, a 3 picture triptych created in Photoshop from 3 pictures.